Welcome to another edition of Simply Stay. This edition is going to be on J.Lo, Jay-Z, Britney Spears, and a recent turn of events in the court of France. And also like to open the episode talking about the fact that Vladimir Putin stated yesterday through Reuters news service that he is planning to take a meeting with Donald Trump to talk about ending the war with Ukraine. I don't believe it. To consider that Ukraine has 4,000 children missing, millions of dollars in damage to their country, and additionally, it would be completely unacceptable to ask the government of Ukraine or the Ukrainian people to put up with aggressions from Russia, which have gone on for at least a decade before the actual war began. So, it would not be acceptable, and I would not support as a U.S. citizen that Ukraine put up with more aggressions from the government of Russia or Vladimir Putin. And they've been very successful actually in making inroads into Russia itself. So, to ask them to pull back or to not continue forward with planning to kill Putin would actually be something I wouldn't support, and I don't think anyone else who is reasonable would support either. And that's actually what the statement sounds like Putin is hoping would happen. So it's simply a selfish stance he's taking at this point, and frankly dangerous to Donald Trump because of the past that Donald Trump had with his situation with the Endeavor Corporation, which is a Russian funded and founded company, and also partly involved with the Chinese CCP as well, and fairly dangerous to the U.S. itself. So this week, I'm moving on to J.Lo on Wednesday. She was in a meeting, news conference. Her reporter told her that she was getting old to be continuing to perform. It's important to note that there's a lot of performers in the U.S. who are much older than her, and people don't say that to them and don't particularly care. What they're really saying to her, and I will interpret this for anyone who's trying to understand the meaning, they're saying, "You are getting tired, lady. Your act is old." And it is. It was old over a decade ago. The amount of abuse she put me through and other people that she labor trafficked, what happened to my mom and I, was completely disgusting and more than enough for her to go to prison for. But you have to consider that there's multiple people who've had the same situation and circumstances. She owes me money. She owes a lot of people money. She wears a fake mask and she's completely photoshopped. She doesn't really dance or sing or perform at her shows. It's beyond time for her to be getting done and old. It's time for her to go to prison, frankly. It's also notable this week that Pity, in a very disassociative, strange comment, talked about how he saw Jay-Z's brother at a time when it actually would probably harm Jay-Z more because Jay-Z is actually looking at going through charges himself, of raping a 13-year-old woman along with P. Diddy back almost 2 decades ago. Notably, I also have to add that P. Diddy doesn't actually seem to be doing this in a hostile nature. It's just a strange comment from a guy that's always really disassociative and weird. But if you note that he also felt really close to Biggie Smalls, and well, Biggie's dead. So some of his close friends of the past haven't done too well, is the way I would put it. And to tie it all together, neither of these people, J.Lo and Jay-Z both depended on P. Diddy as a backer, and he's now in prison, so they don't have him to count on anymore to protect them. So it's something to think about. Additionally, this is switching to Britney Spears. Footage was released of her this week in Mexico, dancing around and apparently on drugs. Definitely a disturbed mental state, and I would venture to guess that we may end up getting a report that she's simply dead soon. She's supposedly living there now, according to her Instagram page, but there have been multiple reports released saying that she is actually just vacationing there, according to her management. But she says she's living there. So moving on. It's all important to note that there was footage released this week of Justin Timberlake revealing his junk on stage at a show. I have to say, with both of them over the past year and a half, they've been nothing but trashy with each other in their fights and arguments and discussions. They'll try to be supportive of people, but the reality is it's been trashy enough to even make Jessica Biel look like a really trashy, weird person as well, as noting that Justin Timberlake was also arrested for drunk driving charges earlier this year. And that was in the very beginning of 2024, and we're now coming to the end of it. So and I have to juxtapose all of this with the fact that woman, I'll just give her last name, Pelicot. So I'll just say Miss Pellicote, or Madame Pellicote in France, finally is getting justice to see her husband, Dominique Pellicote, sentenced to 20 years in prison. He admitted drugging her for over 10 years and having her raped by multiple men during the decade. And he was finally sentenced in France. 46 men were found guilty of rape and 26 to 74 years of age. And there were 3 to 13, this isn't gonna make sense. There was a total of 400 years sentenced, 46 men found guilty, and the sentence ranged from 3 to 13 years, with a total of 400 years of sentences given out. So it looks like France might actually be doing better in some ways than the US is on dealing with the issues of rape And you could probably also throw an argument for some labor trafficking there because apparently, she was drugged and forced to have sex with these men, which is a form of sex trafficking, which is a subcategory of labor trafficking. I myself went through massive labor trafficking to actually produce massive amounts of material for people in the entertainment industry here in the US through Induct Corp and some other related entities. And of course, it was all Russian FSB trafficking. And it's also important to note that this week someone filed a report and actually successfully bringing a lawsuit against Adele to stop one of her songs from being performed. It was actually one of the ones that I wrote and was never paid for. And I don't think it means to be a restitution for me as much as to just simply stop the song from being played, P-L-A-Y-E-D, because the woman makes money off of it. It was actually a song about my mother and I and our relationship, and she doesn't have the right to perform it. And that's it. So this has been another edition of Simply Stated. Thank you so much.